I have the pleasure of having Melissa Koslin with me. And I am delighted to have her because she writes some really fabulous romantic suspense. And we're going to talk about her latest book that's coming out, The Lost Library. But I can tell you, I've enjoyed each of her books because she creates great characters and some really fast-paced suspense that teeters on thriller because there's just so much going on. And usually it has some cutting-edge technology and really worldwide implications. So, Melissa, before we start talking about the book, do you want to share just a little bit about who you are and how you got started writing?
So I'm Melissa and I got started writing just kind of on accidents. I had an idea that it just wouldn't go away. No idea what I was doing whatsoever, but just started writing on a notebook one day and I just haven't not been able to stop. So here we are.
I love that. So, how did you get started with romantic suspense, though? Because you could have been writing Amish fiction or contemporary romance, but instead you decided to write these kind of high octane page turners.
I think it just kind of fell naturally because I'm a fourth degree black belt and I trained in Taekwondo for like 20 years or so. So I think it just kind of naturally, that's something I know a lot about. So, and I find interest in it. So it just worked.
Yeah, I mean, and it definitely does because your books are really kind of focused on that. You've got these spunky heroines who
Mm.
usually aren't going to take anything from anybody, and then they find themselves in these situations where they don't necessarily need the hero, but they end up partnering with the hero. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the Lost Library. How did you end up with the original what if, the kernel of the idea for the story?
So it actually started with The Beast. The title that I had, like the working title I had was just The Beast. I liked the idea of taking that kind of moniker, that idea, and making a person out of it and in an interesting way. And then I had a lot of different ideas about what the girl was going to be. I knew she was going to be somebody super smart, like super crazy smart. But I was like, but is she going to be? I played with the Culper ring as a background idea. And then I stumbled across the Lost Library, which is an actual thing. And I was just like, okay, I got to do this. I mean, how can you not write about a lost library? That's so cool.
So tell us a little bit more about the Lost Library, and the idea that there is this like collection out there that people are after, and what actually is it? Because the idea that it's grounded in something real, I think really ups the stakes for me as a reader on wanting to know more about the story and wanting to actually engage with it and read it.
So it's rumored to be an actual thing underneath the Kremlin in Moscow. It's also called the Golden Library. I just thought Lost Library was a cooler title. Um,
Yeah.
and so there's rumors of like Napoleon searching for it. And there's supposed to be ancient texts, ancient Chinese texts, library at Alexandria texts, like all kinds of cool things. And then Ivan the Terrible thought that there was black magic in there, which actually kind of comes into this book as well. Um, and then so then he made it lost. So I don't know what that means, if he destroyed it or what, if he just, just didn't want anybody else to have it. So it's all kind of this mysterious rumor, you know?
Yeah, well, you could see him going lots of different directions. Either I'm going to hold it all for myself, or I'm going to destroy it because it's too big, too terrible, or just create rumors that this thing exists and it may not
Yeah.
actually be real. And it could go
Yeah,
any
exactly.
direction.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really fun.
Yeah, because then as a writer, there are so many different ways you can take that in a story
Hmm.
world and play with it. And as I was reading the book, I mean, the idea that you've got Beauty and the Beast is definitely at play. So, what did that allow you to do? Because I mean, it's like they're kind of foundationally, but it's not Beauty and the Beast. I mean, there's so much more
Yeah.
going on with this story.
It's very subtle. And I've always liked the idea of something like that being like there, but not overt. And you kind of have
Mhm.
to pay attention to catch it. You know what I mean? It's almost like a little lost thing that the reader's like, oh, that's cool. I found that, you know? So
Yeah.
I just thought that was fun. And then it sprang, of course, from the whole beast idea to begin with. So I just subtly worked it in and never called it out directly.
Yeah, but it was one of those, and maybe it's just because I'm a writer, but pretty quickly I was like, ooh, I feel this kind of subtext, I guess maybe is a good way to call it. That it was just kind of there, and it added a layer of fun for me that
Hmm.
um maybe that is more like the romance thread. It's kind of
Yeah.
burbling there under the surface. But the heroine is really interesting because she's on the run, kind of under the radar, definitely, or trying to be. And yeah, she's brilliant. And she's got like this white hat, gray hat kind of double life going on. How
Yeah.
did you work all of this in? Because
Ah,
that's one of the things about your books. Because when I interview suspense writers, we're all doing like these spider webs, multi-layered, complex
mhm.
plots. There's nothing simple and straightforward about them, or readers wouldn't want to read them. How did you come up with all the layers? And when did you know there was enough or there's not enough and I need to keep going? Because that's like
This
an
one
art in and of itself.
it is. And this one I was like, am I putting too much in? Because I've got the gray hat thing, which is cool, and then I've got the Beauty and the Beast subtext in there, and then the Lost Library. But I think it all actually works well because the Lost Library is the main focus, and the rest are just kind of interesting subtopics, I guess.
Yeah. But how did you pull them all together? How do you know? I guess because you had the beast as the starting point,
Hmm.
but that's like a character. A
Yeah.
character is not usually enough to drive. I mean, it can be, I suppose, like Hannibal Lecter or something like that. But you still have to have like the action points that are going to move the
Yeah.
plot along.
So
So
then
how did you?
I
Yeah,
started looking at history. So I looked at the Culper Ring, and then I came across the Lost Library, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be like the meat of the whole story right there. And then my husband, he's a network engineer and a security engineer, and he babbles on about things that I don't understand whatsoever. But I did catch on that he does some white hat hacking training, which is basically like if a company pays somebody to go into their systems, they know they're in there, they know they're trying to break things, trying to hack things. That's a white hat hacker. They're bringing them in to purposefully try to be the bad guy. And then they help them find solutions if they find ways in or whatever. So the gray, and then the hackers, the bad guys, and then my gray hats are somewhere in between. They're good guys, but they don't always have permission to do what they're doing. So I thought that was fun. It kind of came from my husband, and I thought it was an interesting way for more information to come to light. Gave me that
yeah.
that method.
And they're kind of on the periphery because they're not purely bad, they're not purely good. And that's how most of us are. We have that little bit of we're
Hmm.
trying to be good, but sometimes we kind of play on the edge, maybe, even if we don't want to admit it. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of a fun and to have her helping them on occasion, and getting what she needed from them on
Hmm.
occasion. It was a cool technique. So when you're writing, what does your writing day look like? Do you write every day? How does it play out for you?
Well, I have a 2-year-old who has decided her bedtime is like 9 o'clock because she will not go to sleep before then. So I'm just like lunch breaks, randomly here and there. It's just whenever I can right now.
Yeah, those 2-year-olds, those kids. And what I found is it's the teenagers really mess with my writing time because they like to write or they like to come talk to me at what used to be my sweet spot for writing. And so now I'm like, okay, I don't know when I'm gonna write. This is
Yeah.
kind of challenging. So yeah, those
Yeah, I
20-minute
bet.
spurts are
Yeah,
becoming
exactly.
the yeah, become the sweet spot. So are you a plotter, a pantser, or somewhere in between? Because it sounds like you do a lot of research to kind of get going, but do you have kind of like a really good idea of where you're going, or do you just start writing and see what happens?
Mostly a plotter. I have to have an idea of where I'm going, but I allow enough leniency with myself that because as you're going, stuff comes up. You think about more.
Mhm.
And so I allow enough flexibility in the outline to tweak, twist, add a little bit. So mostly plotter, but a little bit of pantser.
Yeah. You do most of the plotting like at the beginning while you're doing your research so that then,
Hmm.
and when you're writing, do you have like a word count per day or a page count or,
Whatever I can do.
yeah. And some seasons are just like that. And it's always interesting because some of my friends, if they get 500 words a day, it's a really great day. And then there are
Mm-hmm.
others of us, it's like when we're on deadline, it has to be 2,000 words a day. And if not, we're like freaking out.
Yeah,
And then sometimes there's just seasons in life where you're like, whatever I can get is what I can get. And that's going to be
gonna
good.
have to be good enough. Yeah.
So, where do you find joy in the writing process?
So the part I think I love the most is I love background stories. Maybe not everybody likes that, but I do. I don't do like, go tell the whole background story in like an info dump. I like to come out a little bit at a time and for people to discover history about themselves that they didn't know previously. A lot of that happens in this book. And then I really do like the play between two characters because I like the romance aspect. I don't like sappy romance. I'm kind of particular on that. Maybe some people think my romance is a little sappy, but I don't care. I like that deep connection between the
Mhm.
characters and not necessarily in a touchy way. Like I don't necessarily need them to kiss and stuff. That's fine, but it needs to be something deeper than that for me, and I really
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, where there's that connection, like on either a
Yeah,
mental level or they're
yeah,
going in the same direction, that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, that's a lot of fun. And I'm the same way. I've got, well, we both have friends that write the really great, if you want the more traditional romance, they're fabulous at it. And like, I'm always like, oh yeah, I've got to write the romance. Huh. Okay, got to add that layer in. And
yeah.
sometimes it comes real easily. Sometimes the characters, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're just writing it themselves. And other times I'm like,
I have to remember to do
okay,
this.
yeah, yeah, it's time to write that in there. Okay, let's see how this
Yeah.
goes.
I was on a group
So
interview with some others, and yeah, a lot of people are like that. They're either like they're doing the romance and then they have to force the suspense or the opposite. It's
yeah, isn't
interesting.
that interesting how we tend to go one way or the other? And it's not,
Yeah.
I think there are probably a couple who are like, it's perfectly balanced. I don't even have to think about it. It just flows. I think for most of us, we lean one way or the other,
Hmm.
just kind of instinctively. So when you're, if you could go back, because how long have you been writing now, Melissa?
Uh, 2009, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to that 2009 Melissa, what's some writing advice you would give her?
Honestly, I feel like it was a journey that I had to go on. It's all the stuff I
Mhm.
had to learn on my own. I don't think anybody could have really given me advice that would have really, really clicked in my head. You know what I mean? I had intellectually gotten it, but not
Yeah.
really digested it. So I think it's really just something I had to do,
Yeah.
had to live
Sometimes we
through it.
just have to go through the journey on our own. I
Yeah.
love that. So what's your biggest challenge as an author when you think about the writing process or just author life in general?
Finding time. Right now, it's just finding time.
Yeah, especially with the 2-year-old.
Yeah. And then I work full time too. So it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and finding those 20-minute bursts really makes a difference when you've got demands of kids and a job and those
Hmm.
husbands and all of that. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So as you think about writing and the life and everything, do you find that you have a favorite like writing snack or a thing that you do when you are in that moment? Are you like, I am so zoned in that all I can do is create words because that's all I have time to do?
Yeah. That's it. That's all I can do.
Yeah,
And especially, I mean, suspense, you really have to focus on what you're doing, especially if you're in that suspenseful moment where there's a
yeah.
lot going on. I just have to focus because I feel like it takes all my brain power just to get all the details right.
Absolutely. And when you start writing on a day, do you go back and revise or do you just get the first draft done and then go back and revise when it's all written?
I usually just do the first draft and then go back.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause that's another one where everybody's a little different. I used to revise as I went, and now it kind of depends on where I am, and I might get 3 or 4 chapters done and then go back and revise.
Yeah.
Um, so thinking about the books you have written, and this will be our wrap up question. It's one I don't often ask, but your books are so visual. I think it would be fun. If
Mm.
you could pick one book to be a movie, which one would you pick?
I would like out of the last three that I've written, those are my three favorites. I think, kind of think Never Miss might be a good one, and Lost
Yeah,
Library might be good too. Yeah. I think
yeah,
Dangerous Beauty, it would be hard to cast the right people and to get the actors to really get the romance. I don't know. I just feel like that would be hard to do. So, but the
yeah,
other
because
two,
that
I think, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
Dangerous Beauty could be kind of tricky, but it could work because it's kind of a forced proximity kind of book.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that one would
It
be
would be
fun
hard to get
too.
the actors that could really pull off, I think, the connection between the characters effectively. That's my favorite part of that book, is just
Yeah,
that connection. Yeah.
because it is a special one. I love
Mm.
that book. They're all good though. But okay, Tom Cruise, if you're listening, here's your next Mission Impossible franchise. So
There you go.
anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Melissa. This was so much fun, and I have really enjoyed The Lost Library. It is another great high octane adventure that takes us all over the world as we're searching for the lost library that Alexander the Great, or not Alexander the Great, Ivan the Terrible may or may not have done something with. So thanks for joining me.
All right. Thank you for having me.